aiming to do is now create these projects that take blockchain beyond just the financial world, create projects that can be applied to all industries, and create projects that allow for more interactions with the user. So the way I like to think about this is kind of analogous towards the development of the internet, right? We had one-way systems like PayPal and things like that. But later on, we saw the development of things like Instagram, Facebook, these social media platforms where users were able to interact with the internet in a higher way and allowed us to use the internet in a more complex way. And this is sort of the analogy in blockchain terms, what the open web is trying to do. Here's another quote. Just like Ethereum enabled the easy piping of high value money, any asset that can be tokenized can be piped through a similar set of components, right? So basically it allows us to kind of tokenize anything that holds value in the real world and allows us to interact with it. Okay, and the same challenges in the open web exist as they existed in the open finance when we went from open money to open finance, in that in order to process the different cases of the open web. So when we have the open web, these projects are going to be much, much larger. It's going to require more data, more transactions, and more usability. And so existing blockchains sort of need to be able to support higher volume, higher speed, lower transaction costs, and this other argument, which is more usability, which means that it needs to be able to enable interactions between the blockchain more efficiently and better. And so these are sort of the challenges that are ongoing today. How do we create a blockchain platform that supports all of these? And it's one that Near, the focus of this web series, is aiming to solve. Near is another blockchain platform, and is aiming to solve these scalability issues and in order to make a platform that can be used for open web projects in the future. And now I'm going to introduce Cameron, who is a member of the Near ecosystem, who can better explain how Near works and how important it is for the future of blockchain technology. So Cameron.
Hey, Kevin, thank you so much for this awesome presentation. And hey, everybody, my name is Cameron Dennis. I work at the Near Foundation. I've been here for about a year and a half, mainly working on everything ecosystem related. This includes grants, dev shops, investor relations, essentially keeping my pulse on the finger, keeping my finger on the pulse of the ecosystem, making sure that projects get the support that they need and whatnot. But yeah, to dive kind of right into it, actually, do you mind just going back to I believe it's the original slide, best in class platform? Perfect, yes. So what Near is, it's a layer one blockchain that is focused on empowering people to own their assets, control their data, and participate in governance for all the platforms in which they use. The key issue here is that, blockchains are really hard to use. How many of you have actually tried to actually have a MetaMask and, or better yet, in the chat, who here has lost their keys before? Like their actual private key to their wallets, because I have, and it's not a good time. You lose everything in there. And so what Near is really focused on is bringing blockchains to billions of people. And right now, Ethereum, although I love Ethereum and I got originally involved in 2016, this was definitely the thing that powered all of this, it's not fast enough. It's not usable enough. And it's too expensive for mass adoption. And so this is why I ended up working at Near, because that actually solves all these problems very tangibly. And if you don't mind just clicking next slide, we can get into what we're actually focusing on. It's really about the creators, the communities, and finance. So for creators, how do we actually empower people to own the assets and sell them that they create, to pretty much have new revenue streams to monetize? And then communities, how can you actually participate in the governance of these communities, so your voice is actually heard compared to these Web2 platforms in which you don't benefit from. And then open finance is really this job of a market maker. So market making, for those who might not know, is something that's been around since the beginning of finance. This is the primary role, or one of the roles, of Goldman Sachs and BlackRock and these sometimes even $1 trillion organizations, or they have trillions of dollars of assets under management. Their job is to create the market for people to buy and sell assets. Now, what blockchains sort of revolutionized here was the fact that now they're giving that power to the everyday people who might want to participate in providing what we call liquidity for the market. And this is where anyone can participate, primarily on like these decentralized exchanges as what we call market makers. And I'm happy to dive into that a little bit later, but you can click next slide. Try one more. Yeah, so Near can scale to billions of users because it's actually super inexpensive to use. It takes it's about fractions of a penny per transaction, and every wallet on Near is human readable. So what that means is my wallet ID compared to Ethereum, which is be like 0x yada yada yada, I'm Cameron.Near. And this makes it so much easier to socialize this as if it's like a Venmo username or an email address, rather than a long string that you would have to copy and paste to me for me to understand or know. And so that's why we're focused on simplicity, secure, protocol's never gone down, billions of dollars at stake, making sure it continues to be secure, and then scalable. This is through what we call a sharded architecture. And what that means is we're essentially, anytime that more transactions come to the network, then the blockchain actually creates these sort of sub blockchains, what we call shards. And I'm simplifying this. I'm happy to send you those who are interested more information on the actual details of the architecture. But this is how we're able to maintain 100,000 transactions per second with 1 second block finality, which means the blockchain actually gets like essentially verified every single second. And then also, yeah, tiny transaction fees, fractions of a penny. So next slide. Yep, so right now we launched sharding, which is a really huge deal in computer science generally. This is the architecture that Ethereum 2.0 is looking to adopt. There has been a little bit of a pivot in the ETH2 roadmap, more focusing on zero knowledge tech in order to scale. But we actually, and part of that reason is because it's really hard to deploy sharding, actually upgrade a system with billions of dollars in value locked into it. To go through a major upgrade takes a lot of time and a lot of due diligence. So we had the Near Foundation, Near Inc., and the rest of the ecosystem had a much easier time building this because we didn't have all that technical debt. So we launched sharding on mainnet, which is super cool. And no difference at all to developers. What's really cool about Near as well is that, and if you actually click next slide, you should be able to see a little graphic about it. Near is completely Ethereum compatible. So if you have contracts that are deployed on Ethereum today, you can deploy them on Near and benefit from the low fees and high speeds and everything. And you can write contracts in Solidity, which is the primary language for Ethereum. The next thing is a native ecosystem, which is all written in Rust and assembly script. For those who don't know what Rust is, it's another programming language that's what we call like lower level, closer to the actual metal of the computer, where you can write essentially more secure contracts, and there's less room to mess up, because there's a huge concern, and you may have seen this in the news, where there's a huge hack that over hundreds of millions of dollars or dozens of millions of dollars gets exploited. This is the caveat about having everything on chain, is that there are significant risks with and liability that lies in these smart contracts. And Rust is a much sort of better programming language to write these contracts in. It's harder to learn. So that's also why we support something called assembly script. It's essentially extension of TypeScript, which is a programming language that most web developers in the world know today. And this is really compelling because this means we can onboard thousands, if not hundreds of thousands more developers into the Near ecosystem than other ecosystems, because we already support Rust, assembly script, Solidity. and also now substrate-based chains. So everything that is being deployed on Polkadot today can also just be deployed right away on Near through something called the Octopus network. And this is very similar to the Cosmos ecosystem as well as Polkadot, because people are able to deploy their own app chains. And what an app chain is its own blockchain in which you're able to set the parameters, and how consensus is created and how many validators you stand up. It's essentially your own private chain if you want it. And to me, this is the beginning of an open web that works for everybody. Why? Because it's flexible and it provides people the choice, provides people the option to write contracts in Solidity, deploy on Ethereum, deploy on Near, Polkadot, and everything can interoperate with Near. What's also really compelling about Octopus is the people who launch their own app chains, they don't have to stand up their own validator set, their own miner set, because they can just leverage Nears. And that's really compelling, because if you're a founder, you should be focused on building a good product and growing to billions of users. Maybe it's not the best use of your time to deal with protocol politics and all of this technical infrastructure that's a little bit, it's cumbersome. It's a lot of overhead. So the goal with Near is, how do we abstract all of that away for the developers to seamlessly just build apps and deploy? And so if you go to the next slide, you should see this. Yeah, interoperability. That's kind of what I was getting at before. But what really powers this as well is all these bridges. And so if you're relatively new to the blockchain ecosystem, you'll start learning that there's all of these bridges in between these different ecosystems where you can move assets from Bitcoin to Ethereum, and Ethereum to Near to Polygon to Solana, all this stuff. Now, there's sort of I think of an issue with all of this, mainly because these bridges are probably the largest targets. They're the largest security vulnerabilities in the space, mainly because when you're moving assets, let's say from Bitcoin to Ethereum, what you're really doing is you have some contract that you're depositing, some program that you're depositing your Bitcoin into, and then running some sort of verifier saying, hey, these coins have been locked in this contract. Let's recreate those tokens on this other blockchain one-to-one. So one Bitcoin on Bitcoin goes in the contract, another one on Ethereum gets created. And if the Bitcoin it gets destroyed in the Bitcoin contract, then it's also destroyed on Ethereum. Now, that sounds pretty straightforward and cool. The issue is that there's a lot of centralization within that process. And so what's really cool about the Rainbow Bridge is it's not completely decentralized, but it's permissionless. So you're able to take it and fork it and do whatever you want with it. And there's a clear path towards creating a decentralized bridging architecture. And that's a really powerful thing. And that's what's really going to enable interoperability across all these different ecosystems. And so right now that Rainbow Bridge is possible it's deployed between Ethereum and Near. And so that means you can move your assets between these two chains very seamlessly, as long as you have a Near wallet and an Ethereum wallet. So I'm just going to drop the link to the bridge in the chat here. Check it out yourself if you're interested. And also, I would highly recommend, if anyone is interested in getting a Near wallet, you can direct message me on Twitter or on Telegram at Cameron Dennis. And I'm happy to send you a little bit of Near just to kind of get started. So next slide. Is there a next slide? No?
I'm not sure if there is a next slide.
Okay, well, in that case, we do have 7 minutes left. I can keep on going on, but I think it might be best to answer some questions if there are any. Cross-chain transactions again. Yeah, so show a demo of the Rainbow Bridge. Yeah, I could do both. So let me just change my wallet address. So yeah, so cross-chain bridging. You essentially, there's two models. There's like a burn and mint. So you create an asset on one chain, what we call is running like a light client. And what that really is doing is just ensuring that data on one chain is the same as data on the other chain, or one contract is the same as the other contract. And there's sort of an issue here with, there's sort of an issue here because of that centralization risk. There was a big hack, it's called Wormhole. It was a bridge between Solana and Ethereum, and there's a $300 million plus lost. I think it was the largest hack in history, actually. I think it's the largest amount of money stolen at once. And this is why it's such a concern. We haven't seen all of this play out quite yet, but yeah, I hope that explains. There are other chains Near is doing as well. Who are your main competitors? So yeah, there are some. I would say the largest competitors of Near are Avalanche, Solana, Terra, Polygon maybe, but really it's about the different architectures. So Near is what we call the sharded blockchain. And the reason why I like that is why I like sharding is because it can scale forever. And it at the core of it has decentralization baked into it. And why that's the case is because every time more demand comes to the network, you need more shards. And with more shards comes more validators. And there's this huge queue of validators that it's just ready to deploy onto the network. So the users don't even have to really think about it. The goal is to abstract blockchains away from end users. Blockchains, to be honest, they kind of suck. They are super hard to use for normal users. They're confusing. And so the goal is to create the open web as seamless as, with an experience as seamless as debit cards. When you swipe a debit card, you don't really know that the transaction is moving through 3 different payment providers and there's the Swift network and all this stuff. Retail users should not have to know what blockchains are. So how do we abstract all of this away? Well, the answer is with account models. So how transactions and accounts are actually maintained on the blockchains can serve as the infrastructure to start abstracting the complexities away. And on Near, every wallet is a smart contract. And why that's important is because we can start now creating these new models of experience where you can, let's say, associate your Twitter account with your public key, and with your blockchain wallet. So now you can even log into a Web3 app using your Twitter handle or using your Discord or Instagram or whatever it is, like login. It's like essentially Web2 authentication. And that to me was one of the most compelling things. I'm also the president and founder of the Blockchain Acceleration Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit that helped put this all together. And I've worked with all these other chains. We've gotten grants, we've built curriculum. And the reason why I work at Near is because it's just designed to scale to billions. And this is the point of, to me, the open web. So yeah, let's see, is Near using Dank sharding? Close, it's called Nightshade. And I'm happy to drop the link in the chat, just a link to the paper. And this is if you're interested in learning more about how distributed consensus works. This is how the Near does it. Wormhole V2 later this year. I couldn't speak to that. Wished I could. Transaction costs. Actually found that transaction fees for cross-chain bridging is actually higher. Does Near tackle that issue? So Near tackles the issue on the Near side of things. It is impossible for us to decrease the price of gas on Ethereum. So when you're moving assets from blockchain to blockchain, you actually have to rely on the gas costs on the chains in which you're bridging to. So on Near, it's fractions of a penny, super straightforward. And that would be between like Near and any Near affiliated application, or which would also be like Aurora or Octopus. Aurora, by the way, is the EVM, Ethereum virtual machine of Near. So that's where you're able to use Ethereum applications. Octa Network is actually based on Substrate. Yes, it is. Short answer. And what is the next steps into DeFi? So first step is creating a wallet. That wallet is, you can go to wallet.near.org. I'm also, if you message me on Telegram or Twitter, I could just send you a wallet directly with some Near inside for you to get started. And the best way to get going is either participating in Ref Finance. That's the primary like decentralized exchange on Near. And if you want to, you could even bridge assets over into the Ethereum land through the Rainbow Bridge and start participating on anything in ETH land. Or also, I would avoid starting DeFi on Ethereum. I actually do recommend using every blockchain. Like, what's really cool about Near is that it's a great starting point for people to get into any other ecosystem as well, because we're compatible. And so that is the EVM side of things is through an application called Aurora, and happy to chat more or like tell you more about it if you're down. What is your take on progress of the blockchain industry? Do you think we need L1 wars to end before we see major? Yeah, I would love for the L1 wars to end. This is like, I'm actually kind of sick. I don't really want to be promoting Near. In a perfect world, I'd be promoting the applications built on top of Near. I see Near long-term as like HTTPS. Like, it is what is securing, verifying all the security of our URLs that we're using, but it's there, it uses to verify, but no one really cares about it. It's like, it's not the thing. Really what we should be promoting are the applications building on top of Near. So the NFT marketplaces like Paris and Drawstring and others, or the DAO frameworks, this is, to me, where the value lies. The layer one is just it's really just infrastructure, and ideally no one should really have to know about it. But we're still in the stages today where it matters. Eventually it won't. The time will come. So I do see here, there is 640 nodes online right now. Why are there only, so there are two types of nodes. There are validating nodes, and there are, like, I guess just like general nodes. General nodes sign transactions, and it doesn't require you to actually have like a validator set, so the way it works is that to run a validator, you actually have to have a minimum stake of 100,000 Near. And that's kind of high. It's about $1 million. Similar to Ethereum, how you have to have 32 ETH to run one. And the reason for this is because it's a proof of stake network. Kevin did an amazing job explaining proof of work, but proof of stake is a little bit different, where you are being, the thing that's securing the protocol is actually the money being staked into it, because there's all these economic incentives for you to validate proper transactions in a proper way, where you don't get slashed if you provide, if you do any sort of illicit activity, or like, that your node goes down. So there's a little bit of a difference. If you click the I, actually, I'll just drop the docs here in the chat. What is a node here? What is a node? What is node, and then what is a validator? I'm dropping here if you're interested in learning more. And yeah, it looks like those are most of the questions. Oh, wait, great session is possible. Yeah, so it is possible for people to go from Solidity to Rust. It does take some onboarding experience. So what really impressed me about Near in the early days was their focus on developer experience. And so we have a ton of educational content. This sort of Near web series is just like the tip of the iceberg. We have amazing grant programs, Near university programs. It's all self-paced. Once you become a Near certified developer, you could even start getting placed at jobs within the ecosystem. And we're essentially created this like giant machine because of talent and opportunity, because we're building a new economy here. We need marketers and community managers and developers and front-end developers and like everything, accountants and lawyers. So we're in this early days. Everyone on this call is still incredibly early. So what I would highly recommend you doing if you're down to learn more, definitely come next week. We have a huge, just amazing agenda for you to dive into all of these different use cases more tangibly, and start participating. I think that's the very best way. So DM me on Twitter or Telegram at Cameron Dennis is my Telegram. And on Twitter, it's just Cameron_Dennis. And I'm happy to send you a link to a Near wallet. Now, what's really cool about this, this link I'm sending you is I'm creating a sub account under my main account, and we're going to dive into accounts and transactions in another session. But the really cool thing is I'm just giving you access to claim a sub account that deletes my access. And I know that sounds kind of basic and boring, but why this is so important, it's such an amazing onboarding tool to bring in, let's say, all of Beyonce's fans into Web3, because there's no way that they're going to use a MetaMask wallet. It's going to give them just the option to claim their NFT and participate in DeFi rather than, hey, in order to get started with this platform, you have to create a wallet and remember your seed phrase or write it down. So yeah, let's see. Huge problem with EVM compatible chains is that to deploy a Trader Joe or Benki, the apps need to be completely written from Rust to Solidity. Is that necessary on Near? So it's not necessary for you to have to rewrite all your contracts from Solidity to Rust or Rust to Solidity. And that's why Aurora, if you have contracts, programs written in Solidity, you can just deploy them. And there is even an amazing grant program to give people the funding just to kind of like get it, like figure it out. Like, hey, here's $10,000 to figure out how to deploy your contracts to Near and for you to support, future adoption or maintenance, really. And so I can honestly ramble on about Near for hours. But if you guys want to hear about anything specific, happy to chat. Can't be messaged on Twitter. That is a good point. I should probably change that. And so, yeah, next session, Alexis, do you want to come back on, or Tehran, just talk a little bit more about like the workshop series and what people can expect in future sessions?
Yeah, I guess I can give a brief outro. Thanks everyone for joining today. Cameron and Kevin, you guys did an amazing job. Thank you so much. Yeah, so the whole series of workshops is going to be 10 workshops distributed between 10 university blockchain clubs and BAF. BAF is great. It is based out of America. It's a non-profit charity for accelerating blockchain education and blockchain-based initiatives. And yeah, tune in next week to hear me, Imtiaz, Alex, and Michał from the Cambridge team to hear about to hear about an introduction to blockchain development. Really, we'll go over different consensus mechanisms. We'll go over just an overview of cryptography of your blockchains, and it'll be carried on by multiple sessions every week. They'll happen all on the same time, on the same day, Saturday at 5 p.m. GMT. And yeah, that's about it. It's great to see lots of university clubs working together, and I really like the structure of organizing a series of workshops. It's great from the students' end because all of us are volunteers at our university clubs, so hosting a series of 10 workshops would be a lot of work for just one club. It's a lot of commitment. And secondly, from the audience perspective, you get to hear from students all around the world, and students also get experience in learning first and then teaching it. So it's great. That's really all I have to say. Follow BAF on Twitter, and also make sure you join the Discord. The Discord is great. It has that's where you'll receive most of the updates, and you can also talk to each other on there, which we highly encourage. Everyone should be talking to each other, collaborating, and it'd be good for next time if you guys play around and maybe try to set up a Near wallet. Also, there's the Near website has loads of amazing videos that you can watch in the meantime. They're very they are very inclusive, and they're quite easy to grasp. So I highly recommend those. There's loads of tutorials on YouTube as well. And this series is more or less to give an overview, to give you a kickstart into development on Near. I guess it's for me. I want to give myself a kickstart into developing on Near in the summer. So this kind of ties me down into learning Rust and so on. So yeah, thanks all for coming. And that's basically it. I'll leave it to Alexis to sort of close us off if he's still here.